Cartons of eggs are flying off the shelves faster than toilet paper in 2020. Oftentimes, by the time you get to the store, all that's left is the highest quality, bougiest of eggs that are costing up to $1 per egg.
Prices of eggs has been soaring across the country.
I spent much more time than I'd like to admit digging into every possible reason I could find for eggs to be the price that they are right now. While most of these reasons are absolutely legitimate, I found other reasons that are tiptoeing the line between shady and downright illegal, with the largest egg producer in the United States recording record profits last year. Egg prices in general rose 60% last year, but for grade A eggs, they rose 137%.
1 dozen eggs up 138%.
And these prices were the biggest increase across every single grocery item that we buy. In December of 2021, egg prices were $1.29. In December of 2022, egg prices were $4.25. People are turning to their neighbors that sell eggs, to the farm down the street that sell eggs, because they are selling eggs either cheaper or roughly the same price as the commercial eggs right now. I think we can all acknowledge that COVID-19 threw a wrench in the world that changed pretty much every aspect of our lives. Supply chain issues are still normalizing from that, and that's something that honestly we're just gonna have to be patient with. The price of fuel has gone up, the price of packaging has gone up, the price of labor has gone up, and there's labor shortages. These are all things that are contributing to the higher prices that we're seeing at the store. It costs more money to put those eggs into the more expensive cartons. It costs more money to pay the person to put the eggs in the cartons. It costs more money to ship those eggs across the country. It costs more money for everything right now. And honestly, that makes sense. I can get behind that. There are many states that either have passed or are passing cage-free legislation. The percentage of cage-free flocks in 2010 was 4%. Today, it's 28%, and by 2027, it will be 70%. So states are starting to transition out of the caged flocks. I think we can all collectively agree that we are willing to pay a little bit more for eggs that weren't laid by chickens that are sitting in a cage that is the size of a piece of paper. And if you don't want to pay a little bit extra for that, maybe you're watching the wrong channel. In 2022, we had a perfect storm of sorts. We had the avian flu that came through, which I'll get to in just a minute. And then right as that started to taper off, we had Thanksgiving, we had Christmas, we had all these other holidays that happened right there at that time of year. And what are we doing for those holidays? We are at home, we are off work, we are with our families, cooking breakfast, we are making dinners for these holidays, we are baking. And the demand for eggs for that time of year skyrockets faster than my belt size. And then we have meat prices rising, which is driving more people to want to eat eggs and putting more demand on something that is already struggling with its supply. We just had the worst avian flu outbreak in US history, and that's a fact. Now, the flu spreads really quickly in these commercial farms, and that's because there are so many chickens packed into such a tight little space. Even in the cage-free farms, these chickens are still shoulder to shoulder. They have 1 to 2 square feet per bird, and that is it. There are so many birds in such a tiny little place that, yeah, if a flu gets in there, it's gonna get all of them. And another thing with these commercial farms is there's no biodiversity within their birds. They pretty much get the same exact type of bird, and they are almost genetically identical. So if you have a flu that comes in and these birds are really susceptible to it, then they are all going to be susceptible to it. You don't have any kind of different breeds of birds in these farms. They are all the same. Now, I can get behind the idea of this crazy sickness that kills a lot of things. We all just went through coronavirus, which killed, what, 7 million people? So I fully understand that the flu is a serious thing. There's gonna be so many ins and outs of that business and how they handled that I have no idea about. And I'm not claiming to be an expert about any of it. But honestly, some of the stuff that's coming out about the flu is pretty infuriating. For example, if there is a flock of 1 million birds, and they suspect that one of those birds has this flu, they cull the entire flock. Every single one of them gone.
Weld County, where 1.4 million birds had to be put down.
Now, obviously, this is out of an abundance of caution, and they have more information than I do. But there has to be another way. To me, this is honestly the same as if your grandma got coronavirus, but instead of just quarantining grandma, we're gonna go ahead and put Jimmy down, we're gonna put mom down, we're gonna put dad down. Let's just go ahead and put the whole family down just in case they have it too. This specific flu has little to no effect on humans whatsoever, so why is there not something else that we're trying? The avian flu lasted until the winter months before tapering off, and by that point, the chickens are gonna be slowing down on their laying anyways, so they're not gonna have those chickens laying constantly to bring that production back up, to build that supply back up. For anyone who doesn't know, a chicken lays their eggs based on the amount of light during the day. So during the summer, when we have a whole lot of light during the day, they lay a lot of eggs. During the winter, they slow way down because there's not a whole lot of light. Now, this caused a problem because we lost a whole lot of production due to the avian flu, and then now chickens aren't laying as much, and we can't build that supply back up because it's the winter months, they slowed down. A lot of these egg farms, they do add supplemental lighting, and that brings them back into laying and kind of tricks them into thinking there's enough daylight to lay. But that doesn't put them to 100%. So we weren't able to build that supply back up very quickly after the flu. And then to add insult to injury, we go through this whole bird flu and it tapers off and we start to recover from it. Well, the number one thing that spreads the bird flu is wild birds, and they start their migration in the spring. So in the spring, we just kind of have to, do we hope that the flu doesn't come back? Are we just holding our breath to see if these wild birds bring the flu back when they migrate? That's going to be interesting. At this point, the bird flu has killed off roughly 40 million egg-laying hens. And this is out of a flock size of 390 million egg-laying hens here in the United States. And if you're anything like me, you started to do the math on that, and that's about 10%. And this is the point in my research where I started to get a little bit angry. It was at this point that I came across an article from Forbes. There's an advocacy group called Farm Action, and they sent a letter to the FTC asking them to investigate these big egg corporations for price gouging. Cal-Maine is the biggest egg producer in the United States. They control 20% of the market, which is a huge, huge chunk of the market. Cal-Maine reported record profits for 2022. All right, so that's fishy. Let's dig a little bit deeper into that. Stay with me here. According to Farm Action, these big egg producers saw a 40% increase in their profits last year. They're accusing these large egg corporations of using the avian flu and inflation as pretty much excuses to raise the prices for consumers to make profit for themselves. So at this point, I'm like, okay, so that's one article. Let's change my Google search here and see if I can find a little bit more out about this. And sure enough, the very first thing that came up was a Fox News article, and they said according to a regulatory finding, Cal-Maine's quarterly sales were up 110%, and their gross profits were up over 600% in the same quarter in the previous fiscal year. They're talking about 2021, and it was up over 600% in 2022, which is the same year we had the biggest avian flu outbreak in US history. And you see kind of the same story through a lot of the really big commercial egg factories. There was also a lot of news stories coming out of the UK talking about their situation over there. And the farmers are really struggling over there because the stores aren't paying farmers any more money than they were paying them for these eggs, but the stores are charging quadruple what they originally were. Supermarkets and all these big chain stores, they're making a killing on the eggs over there, but the farmers are barely able to pay the bills. I did try to find similar stories here, and although I did see some like word of mouth stuff, I didn't find any actual news stories about that. That doesn't mean it's not happening, but I'm not going to say that it is happening here either. And then we have the war. The war in Ukraine is raising a lot of our prices more than a lot of people realize. Russia and Ukraine together make up a quarter of the world's wheat exports. Obviously, Ukraine is in a war and there's a lot of sanctions on Russia, so we're just not getting that wheat. Fertilizer prices have also exploded during the war because Russia is one of the world leaders of fertilizer exports, and with all the sanctions and everything on them, we're just not getting that fertilizer. And if you really break it down, it kind of starts to make sense because fertilizer is hard to come by and it's really expensive. People need fertilizer to grow the feed that we feed our chickens. Once you start going down the road there, we're paying for it at the store. The chicken farmers, the egg farmers, they are paying more money just to feed their chickens because they are paying more money for their feed because the fertilizer costs more money to grow the feed that they had to buy. I hope that makes sense. Russia is also one of the world leaders of sunflower seed exports. The war has honestly skyrocketed a lot of different prices, but these are specific to chickens and raising chickens and the costs that go along with it. And that's why we're seeing some of the price increases at the grocery store. All right, so how do we help? How do we do anything about the price of eggs that we're having to deal with? Well, the first thing is stop supporting the commercial egg farms. Go down the street, go find the farm down the street, go find the backyard chicken owner down the street, find anybody in your area that is selling eggs. Because honestly, you're not gonna pay much more for those farm fresh eggs than you are for the commercial eggs at the grocery store. Look into the living conditions of some of these commercial farms. I mean, these chickens are in a cage that are literally, I'm not even kidding, the size of a piece of paper. They're being fed garbage feed that translates into garbage eggs that you're eating. But really, if you go down the street to your local farmer, you're really truly gonna get the happy chickens, the chickens that were treated well and not just grown to do one thing their entire life. Once you make that switch to the farm fresh eggs, you're never going to want to go back anyways. The next thing you can do is, if possible, get your own chickens. Get your own chickens, and you're going to really see the difference between where your eggs are coming from the grocery store compared to where you're getting it in your own backyard, because the taste is different, the nutrition is different, and overall it's pretty amazing to just go to your backyard and get your own eggs. So get this, Joel Salatin, he's a pretty well-known farmer, and he was talking about how there was a city in Belgium and everybody was offered 3 chickens if they wanted them. And there was roughly 2,000 families that said, okay, we'll take the chickens. So they went out and they gave these 2,000 families their 3 chickens. And within 1 month, it took 100 tons of waste from the landfill. Instead of everybody throwing their kitchen waste into the garbage, they were throwing them to their chickens instead. And that waste is really nutritious things that are being used by the chickens and then in turn turned into eggs for you to eat. They say that if 1 in 3 households in the United States had chickens, there would be no egg industry. Can you imagine the amount of food that would not be going to the landfills? Having your own chickens is great. You should definitely have your own chickens. And if you are interested in looking into seeing if chickens are right for you, go watch this video right here. In this video, we talk about the good, bad, and the ugly of owning chickens and if it's right for you, because it's not right for everybody. So go watch that video and I'll see you there.